Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Hello, everyone. I'm Katie Miller with Michigan Maven Creative Associates.
And I'm Danielle Van Hook of the Alden in McLean, Virginia. And we are your co-hosts for today's episode of There's No Business Like. And we'd like to tell you a little story.
So as all of you hopefully know by now, Danielle and I are long-distance besties. And more often than not, that means the only time we have to talk is after work on our drives home. Danielle's commute is an hour and mine is like 5 minutes. So one night, about a week before the 2025 Midwest Arts Expo, we're chatting about all the things, the work, kids, the conference, and of course, the podcast. I'm standing in my kitchen on speakerphone with Danielle, scrolling through the Max Conference app, and Danielle says,
You know, we really need to get back to that idea we had like forever ago about having a discussion around being moms in the industry and find some other moms that we can talk to. And Katie said,
I think I found our moms, and they're hosting a session at Max.
And so those moms are today's guests. Tanya Gertz is the Vice President of Programming and Community Impact at the Ordway Center for the Performing Arts in St. Paul, Minnesota. And Lindsay Bauer is the Executive Director of the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center in Fairfield, Iowa. Tanya and Lindsay most recently hosted a consortia group for moms in the industry at the 2025 Midwest Arts Expo and the 2025 APAP conference. So welcome, Tanya and Lindsay, to the pod.
Thank you so much. We're delighted.
We're so happy to be here. Thanks, ladies.
All right,
Moms.
So we have invited, yes, and moms. So we've invited Tanya and Lindsay on the pod this week to have this conversation around this topic of being working parents, but more specifically working moms in the industry.
But before we get into that, I just want to take a moment to recognize that each of us are cisgender white women who work on the presenting side of the field. We are not intending this to be an encompassing discussion and recognize that mothers, parents, and caregivers exist in a wide spectrum of identity. We do hope that this serves as a kickoff discussion and hope to continue the conversation with those of extended identities in the future. And finally, today we will primarily be talking about our own experiences, so we'll be using the term mom when referring to ourselves, and we'll do our best to say parents when we're talking more broadly. But please give us some grace.
Danielle and I attended the Moms Gathering at Max, which we're going to learn more about here in a moment. And Tanya and Lindsay led us in a special introduction that day. And so, Tanya, we'd love for you to lead us in that now, and then we'll get into our conversation.
Thanks, Katie. The Moms Gathering at Max was our second gathering of moms, and the first one was last January at APAP in New York. And in almost all of our gatherings in these places, we almost always start with what our venue is and what our representation in the field is and how many years we've been in the field and what our community is. And instead, in this gathering, what we asked people to do was to begin with their story as moms and not tell that other story as the way of introducing themselves. That in this space, we were gathering as village and community around being a mom and being a parent. And so I invite the four of us to start our time this morning by telling our mom stories with each other as if we were beginning and creating the space of community with each other like we were in those spaces. If I were to begin, my name is Tanya Gertz, and I am the mom to a 13-year-old boy, and he is an absolutely wonderful but complicated child. What I think is helpful to share is that as a mom, I was actually an older mom, and I had started to believe that I would probably need to lead the field in order to be a mom. And there's a really signature season where there are artists that came that year, and I must have just been talking to everybody because I can still tell you that there are two artists who came that season who convinced me that I could stay in the arts field, do this that I loved, and be a mom. And here I am, figuring out how to do it and still doing it here with you all. So I have one child, and he is 13 and very, very, very much a teenager.
My name is Lindsay, and I also came to motherhood a little bit later in life than a lot of my peers. I will just be open and frank. It was an accident and a surprise. And we very much felt, at the time that we did not have the resources We were both working gig work in Chicago. And we really thought that my pregnancy was going to end in adoption. It did not. In my 8th month of pregnancy, decided that there were changes that we could make to our living situation, to our lives, that would make it possible for him to come home with us. And so in my 8th month of pregnancy, we decided to have a kid. And he is now also 13. He's an only child and is a very unique character and such a huge part of who I am and why I am.
Wonderful.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah. Tanya, Lindsay, thank you for kicking us off. Danielle, do you want to go next?
So yeah, thank you. So I'm the mom of 2, 6, almost 7-year-old twin boys who were born about a year and a month before the pandemic started. As I said, they're twins and they started their life in the NICU. So my mom journey has kind of been broken up into different pieces. And the first part of it was just really based around fear of just meeting them when they were so little and just being so afraid of what was going to happen and all of the different possible outcomes and scenarios, and telling myself it was okay if certain things that I had imagined didn't happen. Almost 7 years later now, it's a completely different feeling of being a mom and just seeing them coming into their own and loving just watching them learn and grow has been an incredible time.
Oh, thanks for sharing, Danielle. I guess I will go last. So I wasn't ever sure that I wanted to be a mom. It wasn't something that I necessarily thought was in my future or that I pined for, or it was a goal of mine. But when we decided, yes, we wanted to be parents, it came pretty fast for us, which was great. But the timing was so interesting. So I got my job at Midland Center for the Arts. We moved at the end of January. I found out in March I was expecting, had the baby in October. And so I had a new job, bought a house, went on a pre-planned vacation, like down to Jamaica or wherever we went, which is great. Found out I was pregnant, got to know all my new coworkers, and then had a baby and went on maternity leave. And in that time,
That's too many things.
It was a lot in like a 10 and a half month, period of time, but it was actually really great because my coworkers at Midland Center for the Arts were incredibly supportive and so excited for their brand new colleague to like have this experience and be in Midland and bringing new things to the table. And I met so many people during that time frame that met me for the very first time while I was expecting. So now 7 years later, 7.5 years later, when I see people in the community, they say, "Oh, how old is your son now? I just remember you being pregnant." So it's like a very funny thing, but it's very memorable, and people love hearing how Leo is doing, and watching him grow up in this community has been really special. So I am the mom of one son. He just turned 7. He is the kindest, most empathetic, funniest little kid you've ever met. And these are the things I love the most about him, is his empathy and his kindness. And he is always talking about how he helped a friend at school or being concerned because someone is out sick and things like that. And it just makes me such a happy parent that he just is naturally inclined like that. And then I also have 2 dogs, Wally and Gus. So I have a menagerie of boys in my house. So I do, I say I'm a boy mom. I'm also a dog mom because they are a very important part of our family as well and really make us a complete family. And I think a big part of my mom journey has been balancing my identities as an arts administrator and a mom, right? And holding those 2 things at the same time. And I think it's always an interesting exercise when you meet someone new and you say, oh, and they're telling you about themselves, what comes first? Is it their job? Is it their family life? Is it they are a rock climber? Like whatever that first identifier is. And clearly mine has always been, I'm an arts administrator. I'm an arts person, right? Becoming a mom, that doesn't necessarily shift right away. And I think those 2 things sort of, one can take precedent over the other, depending on what moment I'm going through in my life or, what's going on, whether it's at work or at home or whatever that is. But it's something I think about a lot is like, how I show up in the multiple spaces I'm in, work, motherhood. I sit on a couple of nonprofit boards. I do a lot of volunteering. I'm trying to set that example for Leo about how to be a full and complete person and show up in my community in really active and impactful ways. that just means that we're busy a lot. He's always going to meetings with me or community events, traveling to see family and friends because we want to be present for people in our lives. He's always on the go with me. And I think that's a big part of the way we relate to each other and what I'm trying to instill in him as well. Well, thank you all for sharing your mom introduction. So I want to get into the meat of our conversation today. Tanya and Lindsay, where did this idea come from for starting a mom-centric or moms in the industry focused affinity group at conference? The first one you did was at APAP in 2025, and then we did another one at the Midwest Arts Expo in 2025. So where did this come from, and what has the experience been like so far in just these two gatherings for the two of you, for those that have attended? Let's just talk about that for a moment and then we'll go on from there.
For me, it really started out of an awareness of gender, a wider awareness of gender in the industry. And Tanya and I had been talking and texting back and forth a bit ahead of the Midwest Arts Expo in 2024. That we wanted to have some kind of panel discussion or some kind of just discussion about women and the special patriarchal challenges that come with that territory. And at the time, I was serving on the professional development committee for the Midwest Arts Expo. And Tanya was kind of like, well, you're on the committee. If we want this to happen, you have the avenue. She said she could put together a conversation with several other women. We had dinner. There were three of us that had dinner at Max in 2024 and kind of had some discussion around this idea. But really what I discovered out of that conversation was most of our stories had to do with motherhood and the particular challenges of being a mother in a professional setting. And after that conversation it's just like every day of conference after that, and everywhere I went, somebody had some sort of mom story. And I had an agent burst into tears when I told her that we were sort of exploring this idea. And she told me her like particular struggle that was really rough for her that morning. And so I left Max 2024 and was just kind of like, okay, this is time. This is overdue. It is overdue for us to have a conversation somehow. We need help. Something needs to happen here. And I didn't really know what that would look like. I didn't know what to do. So I emailed Krista Bradley, who at that time was serving at APAP. I just said, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know how to do it. You're the first person I'm asking, but we need to have some sort of support system. We need to have some kind of formalized structure around this topic. And she emailed me right back. I think it was the same day, and was like, we're finalizing the schedule now. I'm going to set up a meeting. We're going to talk to you. We're going to get you on the APAP schedule for 2025. What's your title? What's the title for your session? And I was like, ChatGPT, what's the title of my session? She said, do you want a co-leader? I was like, obviously Tanya. And that was kind of just how this grew. And Tanya has a lot more experience with these conversations than I do. And she's been really, Tanya, can you talk a little bit about how your journey to this came about, but also your experience and the way that you create space around this topic in the actual sessions is really wonderful.
Oh, wow, Lindsay, thank you. I actually say that I think Lindsay and I are like perfect partners because Lindsay brings this like fierce passion and I kind of bring the like create this space, hold people together. And in that way, we're really good partners together and that we have slightly different energy, both of which is perfect around this conversation. It's really a great thing. I feel like I need to own a little bit that we were unprepared for our very first conversation. We knew this because we'd lived through it, but I don't think we realized that when we started to create space for other people that we would host what we believe is likely to be the one session at APAP with the most tears ever. what we did in our sessions was create space to, as we opened up here, have people share their mom stories, right? And then be able to like take it from there. And then also to create room. Our goal was not to get mad or to be able to but our goal is undeniably to create a sense that you are not alone. Because I think one of the biggest things is that there are so many places where being a mom and being a leader in the arts means that you're trying to pretend all these impossibilities that you're navigating aren't actually happening. And so you're trying to somehow mitigate them all so they affect nobody else. And no one even knows that you're mitigating them, but you're holding all those impossibilities all the time. And then there are several other ways that impossibilities are made that much harder by other people. And you're the one doing that. And it is just really, really hard. And so we created a space where we could allow people to share something that was really hard, and we allowed people to share something that helped. It was a really beautiful space of people feeling seen. Like I was able to actually, by I'm using that in like a global I, meaning like people felt this sense that they could actually give voice to what they've been holding, what they've had to navigate that felt like they couldn't say, and just some really heartbreaking stories that people would say or that they're navigating all the time. And then other things that were also really beautiful as people shared things that helped them in tiny ways or big ways. The first conversation we had at APAP, we had someone whose kids were actually out of her house already. And she said, I came just to see if it had gotten any better yet. And I'm saddened that it's not. But I also am here to say that I will support all of you, right? I mean, so there is just the sense that moms need a village of other moms to navigate all the things so that they can also be their most thriving selves. Because, oh my God, the brilliant, amazing, incredible people that we talked to and the vulnerability that this was in their lives at the same time.
I think just being able to name that this is hard and all the ways that it is hard, because I feel like so often we're told that we're not allowed to have it be hard, that it's our fault for being moms in the first place. And then that there can't be any extra struggles. There can't be, because work comes first and you have to outperform everybody else. And so just even a room full of people in a professional setting, not in a coffee shop, not at a restaurant over dinner, over drinks or whatever, but at APAP, at Max, in a session room where we have this conversation where we say, you're probably today struggling with something or celebrating something like that you wouldn't if you weren't a parent. And just being able to allow, just being allowed to name that is a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Lindsay, I think that's a perfect segue to the next part of our conversation. So I want to do next is listen to a clip from pianist Claire Longendijk. Separate from us having this conversation, Claire sat down with Danielle at Max 2025 in our booth in the hall and talked specifically about her new journey in being an artist and a mother. So I want to take a moment and listen to the conversation that Claire and Danielle had. And I think it's going to set up the rest of our chat today perfectly. So let's take a moment and listen to Claire and Danielle.
My name is Claire Longendijk, and I'm a concert pianist, so I am an artist.
So I would love to know, what is it that we are not talking enough about?
Danielle, we are not talking enough about artists, mothers. So motherhood generally, but in particular artists. And let's go ahead and expand that to professionals in the industry. But as an artist myself, I'm going to stick with artist and motherhood.
So can you tell me about that? Like what stage in the motherhood motherhood journey are you in right now? And why is that something that we're not talking enough about?
Oh, that's a great question. So I have a 16-week-old, so I am new to motherhood, I would say, but I performed throughout my entire 9-month pregnancy, and so I had the sort of early stages of seeing the way that we approach becoming mothers or current mothers. And I think the reason we're not talking about it is because I don't know that we have the language to talk about it. It's a sensitive topic. There are physical changes that women go through that can, at least on the artist side, affect the way that we have to take care of our bodies and the way that we play. But I think that we're not equipped yet to address how those changes affect us professionally. I haven't even, I'm new to this, so I haven't even really sifted through it myself, but we haven't talked about it enough. We haven't figured out how to talk about it enough to make it a topic that feels comfortable to bring up in a public forum.
And so do you want to talk a little bit more about what you went through that makes it feel so urgent, or what you're currently going through?
Yeah, I'd love that. So at the end of my pregnancy, I experienced tendinitis, pregnancy-related tendinitis from swelling. It meant that playing was really different. It was harder, yes, but it was very different for me. So long rehearsals with an orchestra were challenging. Difficult instruments to play. A heavier piano was next to impossible for my ability to play to my very peak. And my concern, if I were to play sort of under the level of where I usually hit, was that people would say, well, it's because she's pregnant, or it's because she's X. And, that ties in with body image things for women too, because I was, much heavier than I often am. And then, the realities of I'm here at a conference and I had to excuse myself for 45 minutes to go pump, because that's part of the realities of being a mom. And we're lucky that here at the Baird Center, there are spaces for me to do that. But, how are we making it comfortable for women to do that? How are we embracing the fact that this is a normal part of being a human, and normal parts of being humans have to coexist next to normal parts of being arts professionals?
Yeah. As a fellow mom, I thank you very much for bringing that to the forefront. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you, Danielle.
What I love about what Claire said is that she's talking about the body. And again, this seems like a taboo topic for so many reasons, not just for women, but female bodies are such a fraught topic in our culture. And that she's actually naming struggles, even obliquely. She barely mentions a size issue, that she looked different and that she felt that made a difference for her as an artist. I feel like even in that candid interview, we were sliding past that topic as quickly as possible. And it is such a major, major thing, and not just for artists, for all of us, but especially for artists, and especially for, I think, female artists, where so often it feels like you're getting booked because of your headshot, or not because of your headshot. And that is such a fragile territory to walk.
Well, an artist, what they do is inherently more physical than maybe what agents and presenters do. I think presenters also can have a very physical job because we are moving stuff around, we're on our feet a lot, but artists are on stage in front of a whole auditorium or space full of people, right? So with all eyeballs on you. So that I feel is even more intensified when it comes to an artist performing their craft in front of an audience.
And I want to say, welcome to motherhood. Welcome, Claire. I mean, that's a little one, and she is here. And welcome to the complexities and the impossibilities and all the things that are hard to name, because there are all kinds of things that don't quite have enough language for just all that is yet to come. I think it's not so much that we don't have the language for it, but it's so much more convenient to leave the expectation to talk about it entirely on the mom, right? And so I think what she's naming a little bit is this sense of like, well, first of all, you don't know just how hard it is until you're living it, right? Like Claire and probably all of us saw a mom navigating things, and until we were a mom, we did not realize the kinds of things that like you're privately trying to manage all the time. And there are just so many of those pieces that are there. And the other thing I think is that I really heard from Claire this sense of trying to navigate pumping and what that meant. And I just want to say that our very first APAP conference, almost everyone had an impossibility, crazy trying to pump at APAP story, and crazy trying to pump amidst our work world. And oh, everybody, it is hard. It is so hard, and it's hard to throw it away, and it's hard to separate, and it's hard to have enough space, and it's hard not to be stressed, and it's hard to have just like such a bodily need when you're supposed to like somehow not even supposed to have to use the bathroom or need sleep at APAP, right? And your feet are not supposed to hurt, you know? So I just think that she has named something that's also magnified as an artist in different ways that you referenced, Katie. But there, our gathering at APAP, one of the things that's true here is the three of us are presenters. And when we were at APAP, we had presenters, we had artists, we had agents. And there are different ways that being a mom comes up and impacts different roles within the field. And one of the pieces about being an artist, about also being a mom and being on tour, of being a mom and having, many of those roles also have those late, long evenings, but then like that, the multiplicity of that. Someone gave beautiful voice to what that means and the tricky things about childcare is not available when you need it, and how do you navigate that, and do you have the village to be able to fill in all the gaps that the field requires? Um, there are just a lot of pieces in which Claire's is beginning to name an experience that I wish I could say we will figure it out for her. But what I would like to say is, come on in, Claire, because it is not easy, and there are lots of places where it feels like, really, I gotta do this. But there are people who are doing that with you, and you are not alone. And we would like to be your village with you.
Yes, all of those things. And I think that we are called upon as humans to look for those ways to support each other, so that the burden isn't on the person who is struggling to have to find the solution. But we all need to be looking for those solutions together. And speaking of, kind of wider society, of village, I also really liked what Claire had to say about, she didn't want to be labeled as, oh, she's having these issues because she's pregnant. Oh, pregnant women can't do XYZ. Pregnant, because all of us are representatives of all of us. And that is such a lot of pressure to carry. I mean, we had so many stories of women who, well, at our dinner, Tanya, who were called into their boss's office, right, to say, are you going to still be able to do your job? Are you going to have the same commitment to your job as not? Or stories at APAP of artists trying to carve out time to work on their own craft and give that the same amount of respect as office hours. That this is their time. They're not playing. They're not being selfish, taking time away from their child to do this right now, because this is who they are. This is what they do. This is serious business, serious work. It is hard out there. One of the biggest tells, I think, that indicates that it's hard to be a mom and a touring artist. Several years ago, my board and I made a decision, which is now, of course, culturally complicated. But we made a decision that we wanted the artists that we book to look like the community that we live in. And so if half of our community is female, then half of our artists half of our stage should be populated by female artists, and not just in the background, but, female led groups. It was hard. It was really, really hard to book fully 50% of our season as female forward. And I started really kind of trying to dive deep. Why is this? Why is this? Where are they? Where are these women? And I really honestly think it's because there is so much more support for dads than there is for moms. And that sounds like a weird thing to say, but I think that the societal expectations for moms are different than they are for dads. And I know it's hard to be dads too. I'm not saying that being a parent is one-sided. It absolutely is not. But I think this is one of the manifestations that we see, and Tanya bringing up being on tour and childcare and what that looks like and how does that happen. It's weeding out some very, I think it's weeding out some very beautiful art.
I also see we had someone who gave voice to their struggles trying to decide to be an executive director, and the struggles of moving into a leadership role and not having the support as a parent, and wondering if they could even be in that leadership role and whether they needed to step down. I've talked with others who have consciously downgraded their gifts and their roles because they don't have the support to be able to do other pieces. And I think in addition to what we're losing from artists, we know that we're losing other things in terms of leaders and leadership within the field. And you can sometimes look around and see some of that. But at the same time, moms have to do more things, and there has to be also space for that to be possible. So I think one of the pieces of that is being able to support when we can the space and understand when there are components for parents, like, do you have to be at all the things? Is this something that you could vary across multiple people in the office and be clear about that? There are a lot of things I think that we do in presenting organizations where we just want everyone kind of there, because why wouldn't we? But maybe it doesn't have to be, and we can be thoughtful about making more clear, like we could rotate this, which makes it more possible for a mom to be very clear they can be there sometimes, and sometimes they don't always have to be, and it doesn't compromise whether they're there. There are ways for us to try and help and support each other while we're doing it, so that we can continue to keep our very best skilled people at play, and see if there's a possibility of that.
To both of your points about the complications of not having a village or needing support in childcare, and women making choices to perhaps not take steps forward in their career, I think one of the things I always think about in all of this is, like, on the other side of it, people, particularly men, will say, well, you choose to be a mother. You reference there, you choose to be a parent, you choose to be a mother. Those complications are yours to deal with alone, right? You've made that choice. But then I go, if you look statistically, women make up 50% of the US workforce, and a large percent of those women are mothers. If you say, well, it's your choice, if you don't want to deal with it, don't work, for instance, when you remove almost 50% of the workforce of the United States, what happens to our economy? What happens to our organizations? What happens to the productivity that we claim is so important to us moving forward, right? So just looking at it as from a numbers game, like, that is an impossible thing to say to women, is like, you have to handle this all on your own. And as we look at parenting and support and artists going on the road, or us being at events, Tanya, like you were saying, like, we look at heterosexual households, parents are spending 3 times more time with their children than previous generations. So even with all these complications, we are still showing up. We're still stepping up. And even though millennial men, studies have shown, are spending more time with their kids than ever before, it's still not an even 50-50 split. So when you take those things into consideration, it's like women still bear the burden of household labor, childcare, transportation, dealing with school, dealing with doctor's appointments. Women are still bearing the brunt of all of that unpaid labor that it takes to run a family, takes to run a household. And we tell them that they have to, because we have to have babies to fill the economy, right? To like have laborers for the future. We have to have children. So women, it feels like to me that women are in this impossible situation where the systems we've set in place make it impossible to sort of navigate and get out of that. And then we tell them on top of it, but it's your choice, right?
Absolutely.
We need you to have babies, but it's your choice to do so. So deal with it.
And if you choose not to, it is because you are selfish, or you're a career chaser, you're ambitious, you're unfeminine, you are unattractive, you are any of the, like, fill in the blank. It is negative. It is so negative, this perception of choosing not to have children. And not even just not having children, only having one. I only have one, right? All three of us, right? We only have one child. How many times have you all been encountered someone who's like, but you're going to have another one, right? Like, I'm sorry. How are my sexual practices anyone else's business at all? My kid is fine. It is not selfish for me to only have one child. He's happy. I mean, it just, and then to still say, but it's your choice. You chose to be a mom. You wanted this. You wanted this. And yeah, sure. We did.
And also wanting it is also not a bad thing. This is what I'm saying.
No.
It is an absolutely impossible position that we have put women in this country.
I just want to say it's a zero-sum game. And it's also about who it underestimates the brilliance and gifts that are in all the minds across all the people, right? We need the brilliance and gifts of women, just like we need them of like all of our BIPOC leaders and all of the other folks who do not get enough support to be able to have their voices fully validated and given all the space that they need. And when they're there, we see more. We see greater complexity and richer conversation and ideas like, what if we looked at how we look at the makeup of our stage and the responsibility we have for who's on it and how we think about that? We like it. What we are as moms and as women is an asset. And that is true of every human that is out there. And we don't want to diminish the possibility that those assets are lost. And so I feel like some of it is claiming that as an asset and then figuring out, how do we help moms not live with this pit of vulnerability all of the time, which compromises that? And how do we help support people who value them understand even tiny ways that they can support them more, right? Like a colleague and I, who are both moms, I now have another mom in my leadership team, which feels amazing. And we just did this thing where, like, I was really struggling to, like, I had to go because the kid has things, right? Like, you can fill the thing is it a doctor appointment? Is it an orchestra concert? Is it one of those things that just is really important and matters, but you feel like you need to stay, but do you need to stay, but you need to go, but you feel like you need to stay, but you're like so torn. All these places where we feel really torn, that no matter what, we feel like we should stay and we should go. And both places we feel like we should be at exactly the same time. And we have started to encourage each other to say, you know what? We really do have this. It's going to be okay. Going is a great thing for you to do, and it's going to be just fine. And we'll make sure that you're up to date tomorrow. And it is just fine. You go ahead and go. That is also important. And being able to just say that to each other is so huge, because as a mom, I don't know about you, but it feels impossible to give myself grace, because that whole time I'm feeling bad, I'm actually doing something good. I feel bad when I go into work because I'm thrilled to be there, and I feel bad I'm not with my kid for something that I've chosen work this time and not my kid. And I feel bad the other time when I've chosen my kid this time and not work. And it's really hard to give myself grace. So if there are any spaces where you can even in the middle where someone has to walk out of a meeting or leave 15 minutes early, and you can say, you know what, it's going to be absolutely fine. You should go. I'll see you tomorrow. And where can we offer each other grace with confidence? That's it's a small thing, but it's also a huge thing.
I
It
agree.
helps. Yeah.
I think that's amazing that you're doing that, because I think my primary experience as a parent is guilt, just guilt all the time. I feel guilty for every moment that I'm not in the office. I feel guilty for every moment that I'm not with my child. Guilt, guilt, guilt. It's wrong. Every choice I make is wrong because it's never enough. I'm never enough. I'll never be enough. And that system, we cannot lead effectively. We cannot serve effectively in a fear-based, shame-based, guilt-based system. And no one is going to overturn that except for us, right? Externally, that's not going to get fixed until we are aware of it and fixing it for each other. I love that you're doing that, Tanya. I think that's revolutionary. I mean, imagine if every single mom out there started by giving grace to all the other parents, and that in turn reflexively gave herself grace. And we just were able to serve and lead completely, fully, without always feeling divided, without always leaving parts of us behind. We could change it. We could.
And I think alongside that, Lindsay, comes transparency and vulnerability from ourselves too, giving grace to others in that and saying, yes, you need go to the doctor's appointment, go. Don't feel guilty about it. It's what you need to do. But then also being transparent as leaders with our staffs too, talking about the challenges that we're facing and telling them I'm feeling this guilt, or I'm feeling this, or yeah, my kid has this thing, or I'm caring for an ill parent. I think on the flip side of this, many, many, many women are caring for children alongside caring for aging parents, or caregiving in many other ways too. So that's a part of this conversation too, alongside of it is caregiving in so many different capacities. So how do we also as leaders accept that we also because you can give grace to everyone else but still not give grace to yourself, or still not be transparent about your own challenges? How do we also do that and set that example for our teams, both male and female, right? Because I'm thinking about, where do men come into this equation? Our coworkers, our counterparts, women that don't have children or don't have caregiving responsibilities, which again, we love them and we embrace them and we want them to be allies with us and walk alongside us in these journeys. How do we then have those conversations with those individuals and help them understand this perspective and these experiences in a way that it benefits the entire organization? Because more flexible policies that sort of stem out of the conversation around parenting will, at the end of the day, benefit everybody as they move through their lives and they experience different challenges along the way as well.
And the problems that we're facing as a world, as a society, as families, as households, they're not little. What we're facing are not little problems. How ridiculous is it that we are excluding brilliant minds from that conversation? And exactly, Katie, I love that you said that we have to set the example for all kinds of grace.
Katie, in terms of workplace policies, there are several pieces that are not enormous, but are still real. Some of it is normalizing being a mom and believing moms and validating their voices. in the midst of what they're navigating. In the context of that, also confidently knowing that being a mom does not also, and giving attention to that, does not compromise whether or not they're dedicated to their work. And so being able to claim that. What happens is what has to be done. One of the things that we need to look at within the arts industry is that oftentimes we're having a big event and it is kind of like an all hands on deck, right? Like we're doing something amazing, and we really are. We do amazing things, but it will be like all of us need to be there because that's just kind of what we do, right? There have been times where, as the mom, I'm aware that I've had to be here and I've made the choice not to be home. And there were real needs at home as well, but there aren't real needs here. There's just kind of a cultural expectation that I'm here. And one of the things that we can do by policy or in a concrete way is that organizationally really look like who is needed and who is needed why. And even looking at can we make that very specific? We need these people, and maybe it's not even always the same people, right? Are there places where that can get varied? And then can we make it really specific? It's really hard to be the parent who's trying to figure out, is that a time where I'm really needed or where I'm not really needed? Is this a time, and I'm trying to figure that out. Like, do I have a really concrete role or I'm just expected to be there? Because the fact of the matter is, if I have a role, I really want to be there. I really want to be able to do my job and be engaged, but I really don't want to be there if I'm going to twiddle my thumbs, actually. And so we have an obligation and an opportunity to relieve stress by making those things much more proactive and concrete for our parents. And it's something that we can do in lots of different places. And this is about defining where the needs are so that we can define where the people are so that moms can assess where they most need to be. The other thing is, like, we all know that there's this ongoing assessment of PTO and flexibility. Where are the places that flexibility can exist? Are there more places where your PTO can be more flexible to give parents the flexibility to navigate all the things that they need to do? Have you reviewed what those policies look like and considered maybe pull some moms together and ask, what does it really look like for you to try and navigate your life with what these things are? Have you pulled people back in the office? Are there new questions to ask and navigate related to that they're navigating now, that like you could just know one or two things and you could do something that relieves their stress and allows them to have more mental capacity to give to you as an organization? And then I just want to say, like, normalizing some things. Like, we used to have this like phrase called sweaty mornings. Like, sometimes I'm just going to say it. Moms have done a gazillion things before we even see you in the morning. And we're just saying hello and good morning to you. But like, I've been up since 5 o'clock and I've already put out like 17 different fires and I've navigated all the things and I've done all these pieces, and like, and some mornings they go like clockwork and other mornings they absolutely refuse to just move forward. And I just want to name like some pieces like that around some grace for moms, that there are some things that no matter how hard every bone in their body wants to make things move at their pace, at their desire, it just doesn't quite always do it. And any like grace around, if someone's late and frazzled and you know they're a mom, like, just give them a little exhale and know that they are coming back to you as they mentally transition from everything they have already done so that then they can go on to do everything they are yet to do. So there are lots of these things that are just about all they're navigating, and we can just be a little more aware so that they're not doing it alone.
So, Lindsay and Tanya, what is next? So, you've had 2 sort of affinity group sessions at conference. I know you're looking to do this more in the future. What do you see as the future? Because I know in the past, right? I remember attending a session at my first APAP a long time ago. That was this question. And then there was a big gap in anybody having this conversation actively, particularly at conference. So now that it's reinvigorated, what do you see as the next part of this? Continuing to create space, but then what else?
Well, one of the things that I know is that it is magnetic when people hear that we are creating this community and this connection and space to talk about being a mom in the arts. Everybody wants to be a part of it. The people who are moms, they immediately they're like, me too, please. How can I be there? How can I be a part of it? Or I told a group of artists at lunch that we were having this conversation, and that part of it was because being a mom in the arts is really hard and there are all these impossible choices. And I wasn't really looking at them because I was eating. And then I looked up at them and they were both like crying. And they were like, yes, count me in. And so I think it's just like, it's so real. We need to be there for each other. And I hope that talking about it more means that we all claim each other more, no matter where we are, in your workplace, in your presenter networks, in your states. Could you do it like in each of our areas? Lindsay and I would love to keep leading at Arts Midwest and APAP and keep making it happen as a regular thing. But you know what? There are lots of other gatherings in this field, and we would love some people to help welcome and gather people in those spaces too. And maybe we can make that more formal at APAP. And as we begin to do this more, maybe that can help us make more concrete things we want to ask and challenge the field about, to make it more possible for us to thrive, to make it more possible for us to even name things with each other. So as a field, we're more knowledgeable, right? And just more aware. Lindsay, how else would you answer that?
I think this is something that IAVM does really well. Apparently, International Association of Venue Managers has like an ongoing forum / almost support group for moms in the industry, right? So this is, if you are a member of IAVM and you're not plugged into this, I can't actually help you do that because I'm not a member of IAVM. I just know that this is something that they have done and have done for years. So I think that's something that we could also do. I think that Max can maybe look at some sort of, I don't know I don't know what that looks like. If it's, an old fashioned web forum or like, chat board, what did we used to call those, or if it's a listserv or something. But having conversations at conference is not enough. Having conversations at conference is important. It's important to have visibility. We're all gathered there. It's important to be able to get together and talk about this there, but it is not enough because it doesn't actually give space on the daily crises. It doesn't, we need something more robust than that. And I think that that's where we will move into something that looks like that. I just don't know how to do it.
At Midwest Arts Expo at Max this fall, you and I had this conversation, and I forgot, Lindsay. You were so amazing to remember that conversation at Max. Do you remember that we had this? That we were like, people need more. It's so clear that people need more. Lindsay and I at that time talked about, could we just pull people together for open Zooms periodically? Like, what else could we do that could help cultivate and support and create this community? Could we do listserv, etc.? All of that, of course, just required more than we quite, like, we're also doing all of our other things. But the need is there and the yearning is there. And me saying like it's magnetic is undeniably true. And so I think there is a space here for us to continue to build in a way, because there is a yearning and brilliant, amazing people to support, and a field that benefits from us supporting them.
Well, I will third that, and I will say creating space and connection is imperative to giving people language, giving people context, giving people the support, and also the support in their moment of need. And I will close out with this illustration. So after I had Leo, I had, pump breaks put into my calendar, going back to talking about pumping, and people kept scheduling meetings over my pump time, right, that I had blocked out of my calendar. And it was clearly like, this is what it's for. It wasn't a secret. People kept scheduling meetings. I kept asking them not to. And also it was the way it was written in our policy was not enough time to like physically walk to the room that was set aside to do what you need to do to get back to your desk. It just literally wasn't enough time. So after I had that experience, I went to our HR manager. I said, hey, can we look at this? I really think this needs to be revised, da, da, da. And they were really reticent to do that. So I was able to get the support of all the other moms of all varying ages, right? Women that had kids 20 years prior, moms that were relatively new, expectant mothers who were in the office, to back me up and say, we need to revisit this policy, not only for the women who are experiencing this now, but the women who will experience this in the future. And those 7-8 women supported me in my effort to get that policy changed. And I think this conversation, the groups, the affinity groups, the spaces we could create could help women make real change in their experience, whether it is an office policy, the support networks they need, the strength to talk to male colleagues about why this is important and why they need to be allies in this work. Without those other women, that policy would not have changed. My singular voice alone was not going to be enough in that large institution, but the power collectively of other women backing me up and saying, yeah, this policy is antiquated. It's outdated. It's not going to meet our needs currently. It's not going to meet our needs in the future. There was real power in that. So kudos to the two of you for starting this, for creating this space. If other moms or parents out there listening want to connect with Lindsay and Tanya to help start these networks or these conversations within your own organizations, within maybe your own presenters consortium, within regional arts organizations, you can reach out via the podcast social media, or send us an email, and I would be happy to connect you directly with Tanya and Lindsay so they can share with you, or we can maybe get some Zoom started at an online affinity group, something, because there is so much power in collective action and sharing our stories and sharing our voices. It's really the only thing that's ever made a difference, right?
Yes, absolutely. I just have to say, can I just like shine a light, a big, beautiful, like art spotlight, one of those great big huge ones, on this issue of a real place to pump? Because the number of people who had like the strangest, weirdest places to pump, who had to had really uncomfortable situations, had to feel really vulnerable about it, had like all the people walking through all the time, had difficulties being able to preserve it, couldn't get away, had like lots of pressure on it. Like this is something like that we can do better at. It's one very concrete thing that if all of our organizations did, if even we were thoughtful about when we're planning conferences, like could really make a real difference. So I just want to shine a big light on it.
And as if it's something to be ashamed of. I mean, that I think is horrifying, that first of all, that you had to ask for this from your HR department, and then that they were resistant. It cost them nothing to make the change. I'm baffled. I am gobsmacked that you had to put together a coalition. Tanya is really, really wonderful about focusing on celebration and positivity and safe spaces. And she's just really fabulous about that. And I appreciate what she said about the two of us providing a good balance, because I will be honest, I have so much rage just like around why is this hard, and then we're being blamed for it being hard. And so, again, this is why we need to have these conversations so much more publicly, so much more comprehensively. It is so, so incredibly important that we stop being ashamed ourselves and we start being celebratory of ourselves.
Lindsay, Tanya, thank you so much for spending the time with us here on There's No Business Like. This is such an important and timely conversation. Thank you for your leadership in this space. Thank you for bringing it to the forefront, for creating space for us to tell our stories and to hopefully make real change in the future. So thank you again.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Lindsay. And moms out there, like, you are not alone. We know you're brilliant, amazing people balancing 1,000 things, and we can't wait to meet you.
Hey, Katie, it's Danielle. Thanks so much for taking my call today.
Oh, hello, Danielle. You're on the air with There's No Business Like.
So I'm not sure if you noticed, but you heard me in the first 5 minutes of this interview and then never again until now. And so I was hoping that I could explain myself about what happened and also share about why this is a perfect example of what it's like to be a mom.
Please do.
So as you may remember, we started scheduling this interview in October.
Yes.
And we had a great plan. Everything was wonderful. We logged on to do our first recording and swiftly found out that our dear friend Lindsay was having internet issues. There was just a freak internet outage in her building. The electricity and the Wi-Fi were not doing their job. And she was like, no, do it without me, do it without me. And as you can hear, that would have been clearly impossible. We couldn't do it without her. Then we got rescheduled for November. Everything's great. We found out right before we jumped on that Lindsay was going to be a little bit late because she got pulled into a meeting. These things happen. Lindsay got on. We were able to jump right in and get started. And then out of nowhere, Tanya disappeared. And we're just really feeling like there was some force out there that knew we were all too powerful to be in the same space.
Did not want us to have this conversation.
And so to be clear, we've done everything right up until and continue to. So we look at our schedules again. Oh no, it's about to be the holiday season. And it comes to the day we're supposed to record. I think it was the week of the holidays or the week right before. Which, is definitely not a time free of chaos for mom, for sure. And that morning, I woke up to a text message that there was an emergency in our family. And so because it has been a 3-month endeavor at this point, and because we had already, been such good stewards of our time, had sort of that beginning piece done, we just decided that one host could certainly do the job so that we were able to put this episode out at some point. So here we are today. And I just feel like that story really, from my perspective, is everything it means to be a mom in this current period of time. Is just you have these big, great ideas and things that you want to do, and you plan them out so well. And nobody gets upset when the things go wrong. And we just we all wanted to work together and we all wanted to make it happen. But none of us are robots. None of us can control the things that happen around us. And, you're just always on your toes because you just don't know what direction.
And you pivot, right? The dreaded word pivot. It was just okay, let's pivot. Let's reschedule. Let's figure this out. Oh, Danielle can't join us because of family emergency. Of course, we're going to get it done because we're moms and we understand that this is the way that it goes and we made it happen. And I'm just grateful to Tanya and Lindsay that they were able to pivot right alongside us and bring their brilliance to the table through all of these sort of forces trying to keep us from having this conversation.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful to them. I felt so bad for canceling, for being the one, and so, I got, I guess, the pleasure of listening to something that, I planned kind of come together. And it was a surprise, which was an interesting experience. But like in listening to it, it's like it's something that I just keep being reminded of, that like none of these problems are specific to our industry. It's really about women who work, and just how under talked about a lot of these things are, and how we just kind of are left on our own to figure it out, on our own. But I will say, I don't think a lot of other industries, like as far as I know, have like mom groups like this where people are, getting together and sharing the story of like, yeah, it's hard for me too. I think giving voice and space and tears like to this thing that we're all sort of like quietly going through, I think is unique and important. Um, and I mean, it's also like really hard to hear somebody like speak your truth. And like some of the things I noted that like Lindsay and Tanya, or I don't even know who said, was like this primary feeling that you have of being a parent is guilt, and like feeling like you need to be in two places at once. And like if I stay here, then I miss this, this, and this. But then I'll, be a team player and I'll be able to contribute. But like if I go home, you know, maybe the thing that I'm doing is making dinner, right? It might seem like an everyday normal thing, but to my kid, that comfort and like knowing what's going to happen for the rest of the day, like regulates their nervous system, right? And like, what are we doing?
And I think we have a unique opportunity as an industry that is focused on telling stories, is focused on the human condition, because at the end of the day, what is our art really trying to express? We're trying to explore and express the human condition, right? And the complexities that come along with it. I think we as an industry have a unique opportunity to make some progress in this area, Danielle. Like everyone faces the challenges with childcare and scheduling and caregiving and all these other things, but we might actually be able to forge ahead and lead the charge in making some of these changes. And much like you, when I was re-listening to it, just going, this is a systems problem, that in the systems that we have built around work and the workplace and workplace expectations that were set, let's be honest, in the early 60s in like heterosexual white male corporate America workplaces, that culture has filtered into all of these other spaces we inhabit. We have a chance now to break those systems down, to have honest conversations and make it better for everyone. Because as we talked about in the interview, when you make flexible workplace policies for one particular party with them in mind, it ends up benefiting everybody, right? You can start in one place and then expand that lens and find ways to make work for everyone, regardless of their situation. And I do think we are in a primed position as live performing arts to think about that in a different way than perhaps other industries in the US.
Yeah, I agree, Katie. And a lot of times I think it comes down to employers wanting to treat people the same. And, I think specifically in this situation, wanting people who choose to not have kids, maybe have older kids, maybe are younger and don't know if they want to have kids yet, they don't want to feel like those people are carrying more of the team burden, or maybe they are. You either like don't want that fear of it, or you don't actually want people
Right.
sort of having the same position, but having uneven benefits. And like getting
Which
back
is a
to
legitimate fear, a legitimate concern,
absolutely,
right? And I feel like we totally hear that and understand that.
but also every person that we work with has a unique varying set of intersectionality needs, right? Like you cannot be a parent but also a caregiver, right? You can have older parents, you can have really close family friends that you have to go and care for. You have to care for your own body, and sometimes that's inconvenient. um and like I like you I I'm not going to say I know what the answer is, but if if we think about it more as a how can we not treat each other like robots and be a little bit more human in how we're making these policies, of just you can't predict. Like for me, I can't predict when one of my kids is going to get sick. And while I have the equipment to work from home, the policy says I can't because I'm watching a child. But at the same time, there is a bit of an expectation that I'm going to be at least checking emails, even though it's going to take me a half an hour to type one, because like my kid needs to ask me 36 questions about whales. And like, but I think that there's a similar example for that, whether you have kids or not, in any kind of facet of your life.
Right.
And like, we also need to recognize that we all go through different seasons of life. And like the person I was before kids, like could do other things. But like the person I am now is much more seasoned, has a lot more experience, but does have more pressure on her time. And I don't think that that should necessarily make me or you less valuable to the team.
Yeah. Well, Danielle, I think this conversation is just the tip of the iceberg because this is such a complex and nuanced conversation. And I'm really hopeful that it's going to inspire more conversation in between individuals, inside individual institutions, and in the industry as a whole. So if you are listening to this before you head to APAP 2026, please know that the Moms in the Arts Affinity Group is going to meet twice during the conference, once on Saturday and once on Sunday. We hope to see you at one of those two affinity group sessions while you are in New York City. Again, thanks so much to Lindsay and Tanya for making so much time to have this very important conversation with us. We appreciate you both.
Thanks, friends. Love ya.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
Okay, pause there.
Cut that off. Upload it.
Okay, we're going to stop. We're going to upload. And then, Tanya, we're going to reschedule for a third time so that we don't rush the most important part of the conversation. So we
really just wanted to
space.
get like all the like intros recorded so that we could just like skip to
So they're just done. So we could put this in the outtakes. How about that, Danielle? So listeners, just so you know, we have tried to record this conversation 3 times because the internet gods are against us, or just patriarchy. I don't know, one of the two. First time Lindsay had an internet issue.
There is a powerful force trying to get us to not have this conversation.
So Lindsay had an internet issue, and then Tanya had an internet issue. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. Okay, we're gonna stop here.
We lost Tanya.
Hold that. Okay, I'm gonna hit stop. We're gonna upload this. Hopefully, we're gonna get her back, and then we can finish. Okay.
You can edit this, right? So I'm just gonna say I'm sorry about that. I'm like, please don't do that. Like, stop it.
No, it's still recording on your end. So the audio will be there. We just couldn't hear you. It sort of cut out a little bit, but the audio will still be recorded on the back end. So we're okay. Lindsay, do you want to respond to that, or I can
Sorry.
respond? You're good.